In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the world's first AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX 370 powered gaming handheld from ONEXPLAYER. This is their brand new ONEXFLY F1 Pro. I've been doing some testing with this for the last few days, and this thing's an absolute beast. But the HX 370 isn't the only new change to their ONEXFLY series, because with this, we get a brand new 144Hz 7-inch OLED display. And they were kind enough to send over their limited edition Neon Genesis Evangelion version. And personally, I love the color scheme they went with. This is representing Unit 02, which was piloted by Asuka, and it looks absolutely amazing. I mean, the red, gold, a little bit of silver there. We do have some RGB around those analog sticks. It's fully programmable from software. The attention to detail here is awesome, and I'm not exactly sure how many limited editions they will be offering, but over on their website, the base color they're offering right now is black. It still has that RGB on the wings and around the analog sticks. Moving up top here, metallic red accents, a little bit of gold there with that power and volume button. It's got a full-size USB 3.2 port and 2 USB 4 ports on this unit. Along with the console itself, they're also going to send over a charger and USB cable, but since we've got the limited edition version, this is EVA branded, and I thought this was really cool. The USB Type-C cable is also branded, and OneX isn't new to these collaborations. They've actually released a couple in the past, like the OneX Mini Gundam Edition, which just happens to be one of my favorite looking handhelds, and an Evangelion ONEXPLAYER 2 Pro. All three of these do look good, and yeah, I mean, when it comes to these limited edition units, they really know exactly what they're doing here. But we're here to talk about the ONEXFLY F1 Pro, and they are offering a couple different variants, but with this one, we've got that AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX 370, making it the first official handheld to hit the market with this chip. CPU is based on Zen 5. We've got 12 cores, 24 threads, a base clock of 3.3, and a boost clock of 5.1. It's got the built-in Radeon 890M iGPU, 16 compute units based on RDNA 3.5 up to 2900 megahertz. They are offering this in a couple different RAM variants. You can go with 32 or 64, but all of them are using faster 7500 megahertz RAM. It uses a 2280 M.2 SSD. It's PCIe 4.0. You could upgrade this, and you could do up to a 4 terabyte drive in this unit. A 7-inch 144Hz OLED display at 1080p. It's 152% sRGB, 100% DCI-P3, and up to 800 nits of brightness. This screen looks beautiful. I mean, hands down, it is a really good looking display. It's got Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth 5.2, a 48.5 watt-hour battery, 100 watt GAN charging, and it weighs 599 grams. When it comes to the overall feel, I've always thought that the ONEXFLY was a really comfortable handheld. It's kind of that perfect size there. It's not as big as the Steam Deck, not as big as their ONEXPLAYER Pro. But the main drawback here is going to be the size of the battery they can add to a device coming in with this form factor. It's only a 48.5 watt-hour battery. Hall-based analog sticks with a little bit of RGB around them. We do have those linear triggers around back with some pretty decent throw. I've always liked the feel of these triggers here. D-pad and face buttons are using conductive pads, and with the D-pad, I've been able to pull off my favorite moves in Street Fighter 6. That's personally why I would use a D-pad. But yeah, overall, really comfortable device, and this screen is beautiful. I mean, I can't stress it enough. 145% sRGB, which is personally what I love. A little bit of oversaturation, super deep blacks, and it does up to 144 Hertz. From Windows, I've been able to go to 60 or 144, but unfortunately, it does not support FreeSync. Now, I will be showing off some new software that they've added here with their new OneX console, updated specifically for this unit here. But first things first, I wanted to show you a little bit of gameplay. Up front, going with something lightweight. Hades 2, I do have the TDP set at 15 watts, but for this indie game, it doesn't quite need to go to 15 watts. We're at 8 to 9 watts, running this at 1080 high, 144 hertz. You take a look at Afterburner up in the top left-hand corner, buttery smooth here, and I mean, it feels amazing on this display. I love those blacks, colors really pop on this, and again, it does up to 800 nits of brightness with the brightness set to 100%. Right now, I'm only at 60% brightness. I mean, it's more than enough for me. We do have a couple extra buttons here, like our turbo button, which is going to open up the OneX console. From here, we can totally tweak the CPU and, of course, change that RGB around the analog sticks there. We'll take a closer look in just a bit. Got my favorite arcade racer, Forza Horizon 5. We're at a 15 watt TDP, medium settings, 1080, no FSR, and this is getting over 80 FPS on average. With that new iGPU, I mean, it really does put out some good performance. We've got 16 compute units as opposed to the older 780M's 12. Plus, it's based on RDNA 3.5 instead of RDNA 3. So we are getting a nice little hike there, especially when it comes to that CU count. But the HX370 is very efficient at these lower TDPs. And by the end of the video, we'll get an idea of battery life with that 48.5 watt hour battery in this thing. And sound on the F1 Pro is handled by dual stereo speakers tuned by Harman. They are downward firing. I kind of wish they were front facing, but it gets loud enough. And OneX has done a really good job with their newer systems ever since they kind of partnered up with Harman to get all of their speakers tuned. Okay, so I've just plugged this into my game capture so we can get a better look at OneX console because they've changed and added quite a few things here with this release. And obviously, since we've got that limited edition Neon Genesis version, we've got a skin for OneX console. Button right on the front, we can bring this up at any given time. Up at the very top, we've got our TDP, anywhere from 4 watts up to 30. Through my testing, we're at 15 to 18. I might do a 30 watt test for at least one game just to give you a look at everything. Moving down a bit, we've got our fan curve that can be fully adjusted. There's 2 different presets. And from here, we can set it basically however we'd like, but I've actually just been leaving it at that stock setting. You can choose preset 1 or 2, so you can have 2 different fan curves. Vibration settings from off all the way up to fierce, and this does have some pretty decent haptics built in. Display resolution can be changed directly from here. RGB effect, got a few presets. Brightness would be nice to have a slider. I mean, we've got 1, 2, and 3 brightness. I've been leaving it on 1. It's definitely bright enough like this. You can see all of these different presets, or we could go solid color with it. Turbo can be enabled or disabled. Gyroscope. From here, we can set it up as an Xbox gamepad, DS4 gamepad, and a hotkey to enable the gyroscope. So it's a 6-axis inside of this unit. Sound vibration. This is pretty cool, and I do like using it with retro games, but at night I do turn it off. And for my testing, I will have it off, but basically kind of gives you some sound feedback through the built-in motors here. So a little bit of sound haptics. Game Trainer, I have not messed around with this on any OneX console. Battery protection is something that I haven't seen before. So charge limit, we can set this up from 50 to 100%, and we can bypass the power supply. That way, we're actually not using the battery when we're in like docked mode or plugged into the wall. Everything will be running from wall power. Brightness control for the built-in screen. We've got our volume right here. And another new feature is the performance preset. So I've got the default preset and a 15 watt preset. What I'm going to do is just add a new one, show you exactly how this works. It's going to open up the OneX console, performance preset. We're going to create a new one by pressing Y. We can name this whatever we'd like. Obviously, skin for the special edition. And we're just going to call this 18W for 18 watt. Moving down, we can set this to 18 watts. We can do this on battery or wall power. And for these presets, I usually do both. Fan setting, we can set up that preset 1 or 2 as long as you've set a curve. Vibration settings. CPU setting. Limit the maximum CPU status to 100%. We can actually lower this on down, and we can also disable CPU boost from here. RGB settings can also be changed once we go into this preset, and this is pretty cool for different games. I mean, you could always name this like Cyberpunk 2077. Every time you go in there, you can have this come on, change that RGB. CPU control, maximum CPU status. I mean, you can control the performance on the fly with a preset. It's pretty awesome that we have this, and you can do it per game if you want to. So there's a lot of new settings here with OneX console, and it's been coming along pretty nicely since they released it. Lots of changes here, and overall, I've been having a pretty decent time with it. Before we test out more games, I did want to give you a look at a few benchmarks that I ran on this unit, and we're going to face this off against the ROG Ally X, but keep in mind I'll have my full review in the next week or so we'll put some more benchmarks in here. And the first one is Geekbench 6. I just wanted a 25 watt TDP for the CPU benchmark. I also tested at 17 and 25 for GPU. But you can see the ONEXFLY with that Ryzen AI 9 HX370 coming in with a single core of 2,854. Versus the ROG Ally X with the Ryzen Z1 Extreme at 2,401. And when it comes to multi, that HX 370 is beating that Z1 Extreme out, mainly because we've got 12 cores and 24 threads, as opposed to the Z1's 8 cores and 16 threads. So when it comes to CPU performance, watt for watt, the HX 370 is beating out that Z1 Extreme, but where the real jump comes in is that new iGPU, the 890M. Here's 3D Mark Time Spy, where it is 17 watt TDP, and both of these devices are using 7500 megahertz RAM. HX 370 and the F1 Pro over on the left-hand side, coming in with a total score of 3,197, and the ROG Ally X with the Z1 Extreme and the Radeon 780M, 2600. Taking it up to a 25 watt TDP, you can see that the Z1 Extreme is now matching the HX 370's iGPU at that 15 watt TDP. But of course, since we're throwing a little more at it, we're now up to 3,657 on the HX 370. Now it's time to test out a few games, and the first one we have here is Cyberpunk 2077. We're at 900p medium at an 18 watt TDP. Of course, we can take this all the way up to 30 watts, and right now I'm not using any kind of frame gen, but that's really what's going to get you up past that 60 mark, and with frame gen, we can actually up the resolution at that same TDP. So now, the only thing I've changed here is the resolution, gone from 900 to 1080, and enabled the built-in FSR3 frame gen. Now we're seeing an average of around 74 FPS at that same 18 watt TDP, and we've managed to take it up from 900p to 1080. And with the HX 370 and the ONEXFLY F1 Pro, we can go up to 30 watts, and there is some diminishing return when you go past that 30 watt, on something like this. But let's just say we wanted to go to dock mode, 30 watt TDP, using those same settings, 1080, medium, frame gen on. We're now getting an average of 104 FPS with this game. And yeah, there are some people out there that just don't like frame gen, and I understand that, but one thing to really keep in mind here is we need to get as much as possible out of these handheld gaming PCs running on a battery with an iGPU, and I think that frame gen is really good technology for something like this. Next on the list, Overwatch 2 1080 medium with FSR 2.2 because I'm at an 18 watt TDP. Even if we take this up to 20 watts, we really don't need the FSR to get an average of around 82 FPS with it. I also wanted to show off how well God of War Ragnarok runs on this device. I do have this set at a 15 watt TDP, but you can see we've got a little bit of boost. It's getting close to 16 watts. Either way, I'm just going to call it there. 16 watt TDP, 1080p, low settings with frame gen on. Over 80 FPS on average, and I've had really good luck with this game on the HX 370 in the past, but most of the time, when I'm testing this chip, we're at a much higher TDP because they're usually in mini PCs. We don't have to worry about battery life or anything like that. But so far, with the games I've tested, I've had really good luck, and we didn't have to take this thing way up. Now, of course, in dock mode, we can go up to that 30 watt TDP if you really feel the need to. But the way I see it, when I personally game, I usually go down to 900p on a handheld anyway. I know everybody wants to see these higher resolutions, but 900p on a 7-inch OLED like this still looks absolutely amazing. And you can lower that wattage down and in turn get much better battery life. But the last one I wanted to show off in this video was Mortal Kombat 1, where at 1080 medium, FSR is set to balanced, 18 watt TDP, running nice and smooth at 60 FPS. The final thing I wanted to do for this video was kind of get a battery life estimate. We've got that 48.5 watt hour battery, and this isn't going to be indicative of playing indie games because even if the TDP is set at, let's say, 15 watts, most indie games aren't going to draw that much. But what I've done here is test a AAA game at 10 watts, 15, and a 30 watt TDP just to kind of get an idea. And with these wattages, I mean, it's full boat 10 watts max, 15 and 30. Screen brightness set to 50%. And remember, we've got a 48.5 watt hour battery with the ONEXFLY F1 Pro. Pulling 10 watts continuously from that APU. Total draw here was 18 watts, giving us around 2 hours and 40 minutes. At a 15 watt TDP, jumped up to a total draw of 25 watts, so 1 hour, 56 minutes. And at a 30 watt TDP, it's pulling 42 watts from the battery in total, giving us around an hour and 9 minutes of runtime. These are just upfront estimates given what we know about the device and, checking out hardware info while everything's running. And this is kind of worst case scenario with the AAA game. Going with an indie game set at a 10 watt TDP, it's not going to do 18 watts in total from the battery, so keep that in mind. In my final review, we'll take a look at real-world battery life with indie games, video playback, and AAA gaming, but so far, the ONEXFLY F1 Pro has been an amazing performer, and I expected it would be, given that we've got that AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX 370. Definitely the best iGPU on the market at the time of making this video. Even at those lower wattages, you see we're seeing some really great performance out of this thing. And I will have more videos coming up soon. I just need to spend a little more time with this. So if there's anything else you want to see running on the ONEXFLY F1 Pro, just let me know in the comments below. But that's going to wrap it up for my first look video. I got to get some more testing out of the way. I want to spend a few more days with this. I'll do some eGPU testing over USB 4 and see exactly what we can get out of this thing. But if you're interested in learning a little more, I'll leave links to the official ONEXPLAYER website in the description. Like always, thanks for watching.